Did you say you were getting are you getting those post handouts?
Yes.
Yes. Hare Krishna. Yes. Shri Rajgachatra Stotra Sattva Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Sirabai Charan Arvind Bhaktivedanta Swami Sri Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Skandiviti Father Acharyas Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Samaveta Bhakti Vrinda Ki Harinanda Sankirtan Ki Grantarasma Bhagavatam Ki Daini Thaikoda Primananda. All glories to be some of the Buddhas. All glories to be some of the Buddhas. All glories to be some of the Buddhas. All glories to see Guru and to see Gauranga. All glories to see Prabhupada Ki. Om Agyanatmirandasya Gyanjana Sarakaya Daksuramiritam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahim Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Parakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavam Sya Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sabhadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakan Vitam Sya Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tatakansana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Suti Devi Pranamami Hare Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyayevasya Patidanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye. Before reciting this Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a very means of conquest, let us first offer our respectful obeisances unto Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremmost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta Prayesha Vadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Tamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. By regularly hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering a service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome within the heart becomes destroyed practically to nil, and loving devotional service unto the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, it becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahmasamitam Utamashloka Charitam Sakara Bhagavan Rishi Nishre Asayalokasya Dhanyam Swasyayanam Mahat. This Srimad Bhagavatam, known as the Grantara, as the king of all Vedic literatures, is the literary incarnation of God. It is compiled by the incarnation of God, the Srila Vyasadeva. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people. It is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhar, Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, 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 Om Sarabhyaya Namaha, 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 Mukam karoti vasaram pamam gayate girim, Yat kripatamaham bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam, Yat kripatamaham bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam. Hare Krishna. Welcome everyone for our morning. Yes, thank you. And today it has a lid. We are making advancement. Yesterday it did not have a lid. Today it has a lid. So today we're reading from Canto number 1, chapter 9, which is entitled The Passing Away of Bhishmadev. Text number 26. Purusha Swa Bhava Vihitan Yatha Varnam Yathashramam Vairagya Raghupalibhyam Amnato Bhaya Lakshanam Purusha Svabhava Vihitam Purusha Svabhava Vihitam Yatha Varnam Yathashramam Vairagya Raghupalibhyam Amnato Bhaya Lakshanam Purusha Svabhava Vihitam Yatha Varnam Yathashramam Vairagya Raghupalibhyam Amnato Bhaya Lakshanam Purusha Svabhava Vihitam Yatha Varnam Yathashramam Vairagya Raghupalibhyam Amnato Bhaya Lakshanam
Purusha Svabhava Vihitam Yatha Varnam Yathashramam Vairagya Raghupalibhyam Amnato Bhaya Lakshanam
Purusha Svabhava Vihitam Yatha Varnam Yathashramam Vairagya Raghupalibhyam Amnato Bhaya Lakshanam
Mataji.
Purusha Svabhava Vihitam Yatha Varnam Yathashramam
Vairagya
bhaya lakshanam.
Anato bhaya lakshanam.
Purusha,
Purusha,
the human being,
the human being.
Svabhava,
Svabhava,
by his own acquired qualities,
By his own acquired qualities.
Vihitan,
Vihitam,
prescribed,
prescribed.
Yatha,
Yatha,
according to,
according to.
Varnam,
Varnam,
classification of castes,
classification of castes.
Yatha,
Yatha,
according to,
according to.
Ashramam,
Ashramam,
orders of life,
orders of life.
Vairagya,
Vairagya,
detachment,
detachment.
Raga,
Raga,
attachment,
Attachment.
Upadibhyam,
Upadibhyam,
out of such designations,
out of such designations.
Amnata,
Amnata,
systematically,
systematically.
Ubhaya,
Ubhaya,
both,
both.
Lakshanam,
Lakshanam,
symptoms.
Symptoms.
Translation, purport by His Divine Grace Sri Bhakti Swami Sri Prabhupada Ki. At Maharaj Yudhishthir's inquiry, Bhishma Dev first defined all the classifications of castes and orders of life in terms of the individual's qualifications. Then he systematically, in twofold divisions, described counteraction by detachment and interaction by attachment. Kindly repeat after me. At Maharaj Yudhishthir's inquiry, Bhishma Dev first defined all the classifications
all the classifications
of castes and orders of life
of castes and orders of life
in terms of
in terms of
the individual's qualifications.
the individual's qualifications.
And then he systematically,
And he systematically,
in twofold divisions,
in twofold divisions,
described counteraction
describe counteraction
by detachment
by detachment
and interaction
and interaction
by attachment.
by attachment.
Purport. The conception of four castes and four orders of life as planned by the Lord himself, Bhagavad Gita 4:13, is to accelerate transcendental qualities of the individual person so that he may gradually realize his spiritual identity and thus act accordingly to get free from material bondage or conditional life. In almost all the Puranas, the subject matter is described in the same spirit. And so also in the Mahabharata, it is more elaborately described by Bhishma Dev in the Shanti Parva, beginning from the 60th chapter. The Varnasrama Dharma is prescribed for the civilized human being just to train him to successfully terminate human life. Self-realization is distinguished from the life of the lower animals engaged in eating, sleeping, fearing, and mating. Bhishma Dev advised for all human beings 9 qualifications. 1, not to become angry. 2, not to lie. 3, to equally distribute wealth. 4, to forgive. 5, to beget children only by one's legitimate wife. 6, to be pure in mind and hygienic in body. 7, not to be inimical toward anyone. 8, to be simple and 9 to support servants or subordinates. One cannot be called a civilized person without acquiring the above mentioned preliminary qualities. So if anyone has read the 7th canto of the Bhagavatam, Narada Muni likewise gives a list of 30 qualities. Canto 7, chapter 11, which is the beginning of Narada Muni's, we could say, detailed explanation as inquired by actually Yudhishthira Maharaj also. And there it is also described that without developing or having these 30 qualities, one cannot be considered as a civilized human being. It's a long purport. I won't read the whole, the full purport. I'll finish this paragraph here. Besides these 9 qualities, the Brahmanas, the intelligent men, the administrative men, the mercantile community, and the laborer class must acquire special qualities in terms of occupational duties mentioned in all the Vedic scriptures. And these qualities for the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras are also mentioned quite in detail in chapter 11 of canto number 7. For the intelligent men, controlling the senses is the most essential qualification. It is the basis of morality. Basis of morality, controlling one's senses. Sex indulgence, even with a legitimate wife, must also be controlled, and thereby family control, known today as wrongly labeled as family planning, will automatically follow. There is modern family planning and Vedic family planning, which is totally different. An intelligent man abuses his great qualifications if he does not follow the Vedic way of life. This means he must seriously make a study of the Vedic literatures, especially of the Srimad Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita. For learning Vedic knowledge, one must approach a person who is 10% engaged in devotional service. He must not do things which are forbidden in the Shastras. A person cannot be a teacher if he drinks or smokes. In the modern system of education, the teacher's academic qualifications is taken into consideration without evaluation of his moral life. Therefore, the result of education is misuse of high intelligence in so many ways. Then in the purport, Prabhupada goes on to describe about Kshatriyas in one chapter, in another chapter, Vaishyas, and I'll just read the last 2 chapters. After describing the Vaishyas, the Shudras class is described here briefly, and then the conclusion. So the Shudra class is less intelligent and should have no independence. When it mentions here less intelligent, doesn't mean they don't have intelligence, but they have less. They are not in a position to lead in society. Actually, it's helpful to understand how there are basically 2 main classes in any society. either in a Vedic society or non-Vedic society. One are those who have natural leadership qualities, natural ability to lead. Of course, in Vedic culture, they must have particular, they must be moral, they must display a whole series, very elaborately described actually in our Shastra, in other literatures like the Kautilya Arthashastra, for example. In any event, so on the one side, qualified leaders, Vedic culture especially, helps individuals to become trained as natural qualified leaders on the one side. And on the other side, there are followers, basically two. Either one is a natural leader or one is a follower. And of course, there are qualifications or qualities that one needs to have also. And the whole Vedic culture is arranged in such a way as to train both individuals to become leaders and individuals to become qualified followers. So, Shudras, by nature, as opposed to Dvija. Dvija means Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya. So that's why in the Vedic culture, those who are meant for, we could say, more advanced and specifically academic education, it is for the Dvijas, means those who have the intellectual ability to study deeply subject matters. So we can differentiate between a Brahmana and a non-Brahmana by giving someone a book and to see how long he can read without falling asleep. Because most of the time we are not having that natural ability to read with clarity and with interest. Just to continue here. The Shudra class is less intelligent and should have no independence. They are meant for rendering service, sincere service to the three higher sections of the society. The Shudra class can attain all comforts of life simply by rendering service to the higher classes. It is especially enjoined that the Shudra should never bank money. As soon as the Shudras accumulate wealth, it will be misused for sinful activities in wine, women, and gambling. And the next sentence is in italics, which means it's given more importance. Wine, women, and gambling indicate that the population is degraded to less than Shudra quality. Modern day society. The higher caste should always look after the maintenance of the Shudras, and they should provide them with old and used garments. A Shudra should not leave his master when the master is old and invalid. And the master should keep the servants satisfied in all respects. The Shudra must first of all be satisfied by sumptuous food and clothing before any sacrifice is performed. In this age, so many functions are held by spending millions, but the poor laborer is not sumptuously fed or given charity, clothing, etc. The laborers are thus dissatisfied and they make agitation. Last paragraph. The Varnas are, so to speak, classifications of different occupations. And ashrama dharma is gradual progress on the path of self-realization. Both are interrelated and one is dependent on the other. The main purpose of ashrama dharma is to awaken knowledge and detachment. The brahmachari ashram is the training ground for the prospective candidates. In this ashram, it is instructed that this material world is not actually the home of the living being. The conditioned souls under material bondage are prisoners of matter, and therefore self-realization is the ultimate aim of life. The whole system of ashrama dharma is a means to detachment. One who fails to assimilate this spirit of detachment is allowed to enter into family life with the same spirit of detachment. It is not that because we're not detached, we enter into family life and we forget about detachment. There are rules and regulations to help one gradually become more and more detached. Vairagya. Therefore, one who attains detachment may at once adopt the fourth order, namely pronounce, and thus live on charity only, not to accumulate wealth, but just to keep body and soul together for ultimate realization. Household life is for one who is attached. That's written in italics, actually. One who is attached generally enters household life. And the vanaprastha and sannyas orders of life are for, again in italics, those who are detached from material life. And the last line of the purport, the brahmachari ashram is especially meant for training both the attached and detached. I chose this verse this morning, especially to underline the very first statement made by Srila Prabhupada in the purport that I could just read again, the very first line of the purport. Let's keep in mind here what's happening. Grandfather Vishwadev is on his bed of arrows, and it is Krishna's arrangement that although so many great personalities are present, Vishwadev is chosen to give instructions to Yudhishthira Maharaj. This is right after the battle of Kurukshetra, and Yudhishthira Maharaj is now becoming the emperor of the world. And Vishwadev actually will be giving many very important instructions, and this is the very first instructions he gives to Yudhishthira Maharaj. And that first instruction is, now you will become the emperor of the world. Therefore, you should organize society based on the principles and system of Varnasrama. And this is the first line. So I'll just read again, just to, in case you might have missed. The conception of four castes and four orders of life as planned by the Lord himself, Bhagavad Gita 4:13, is to accelerate transcendental qualities of the individual person so that he may gradually realize his spiritual identity and thus act accordingly to get free from material bondage or conditional life. When I read this some time back, there's a lot of material in the Bhagavatam. We don't read the same purports all the time. But when we come upon a purport or a text very often it will, it will become like more significant. And to me this is extremely significant because it underlines what Prabhupada also explains in other places, either purports or conversations. And this we don't immediately understand, or at least we don't fully or sufficiently understand how this system of Varna and Varnasrama, number one, is created by Krishna directly. That in itself is significant. Krishna would not create something if it was not for a purpose. And whatever Krishna creates, we should keep in mind, is perfect. So Krishna creates a perfect system for all of us who are here in the material world, conditioned and influenced by the modes of material nature. And as mentioned here very nicely, that system created by Krishna is meant to accelerate our ultimately development of Krishna consciousness. So all of us who have come in contact with Krishna consciousness, we come to know how this material world is described as dukkhalayam ashasvatam, place of misery, wherein repeated birth and death take place. But there's a system which is meant to help us put an end to this miserable condition. Of course, we also know that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has introduced the Yuga Dharma of the chanting of the holy name, and that there are various references as well indicating that, well, if we just chant the holy name, we will become liberated. Kalo nastiva, 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 gatira anyata. In this age of Kali, there's no other process than the chanting of the holy name. So how to, so to speak, marry, how to combine both of these statements or realities, that on the one side we have the process given to us by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then on the other side we have so many references to the system of Varna and Asrama. This requires, I would say, on our part, it's one of the important instructions Prabhupada makes reference here. Also, we need to more closely or more seriously study the statements that are given in the Shastra. And one of our foremost personalities, one of our 12 Mahajans, Mahajana Jena Gata Sapantaha, we are meant to follow in the footsteps of the great teachers or great acharyas. I'm referring to Narada Muni. Narada Muni is meant to be very special for all of us. Why? Because he specializes in the science of Bhakti Yoga, and simultaneously he specializes in the science of Varnasrama Dharma. The seventh canto is from chapter 11 to 15, the last 5 chapters of the seventh canto. It's all Narada Muni actually speaking in great detail about Varnasrama Dharma, as requested by Yudhishthira Maharaj. I mean, Yudhishthira Maharaj is not an ordinary person. He's a pure devotee. He's a Vaishnava. But he wants to hear about Varnasrama Dharma from another great, yes?
In which chapter?
Huh?
In which chapter?
Chapter 11 to 15, 5 chapters of the 7th canto. 7, 11 to 15, yeah. Chapter 11, for example, is entitled Perfect Society. Here we go. Perfect society. Devotees of Krishna are after perfection. I mean, we are endeavoring to become pure devotees. If we don't become pure devotees, we remain here in the material world. So Krishna has given a perfect social system called Varnasrama. So perfect society, the 4 social divisions. Chapter 12, again, perfect society. The 4 spiritual divisions, means the 4 asramas. Actually, both these 2 levels of understanding, knowledge, in terms of Bhakti, the science of the soul, referred to as spiritual Swadharma. Spiritual Swadharma is a whole science in itself. Very deep, very profound, very confidential. Isn't it? Krishna explained, Bhaktu sine sakachiti rahasyam hitarutamam. He's telling to Arjuna, because you are my devotee, my friend, I am explaining to you this very confidential knowledge of ultimately Bhakti, Bhakti Yoga. So spiritual Swadharma is a very deep and profound science simultaneously. And this we tend to forget or tend not to maybe sufficiently give attention. In addition to spiritual Swadharma being very, essential and very profound, very scientific, material Swadharma, which has to do with our material prescribed duties, which has to do with what kind of occupation or work, which has to do with what kind of lifestyle we should adopt, is also very scientific. And because nowadays in modern day society, those who are in leadership position don't have that knowledge, therefore they are making all kinds of experiments in terms of economy, in terms of agriculture, in terms of education, the books, poor students and poor parents, because they have to buy new books all the time, the books are changing all the time in education. Whereas like in Vedic culture, in the traditional system of education or Gurukula, the books don't change. We study every day, and this has been ongoing since like millennium. We study Bhagavatam, we study Bhagavad Gita, because these books contain perfect knowledge. We don't need to change them. We chant the same mantra, we chant the same song, and we don't get tired of chanting the same song because it's a perfect song. It's a perfect mantra. So it's important for us to understand that we have perfect spiritual transcendental knowledge in the whole process of bhakti, which is like in itself is demanding so much of attention and concentration. And on the other side also, equally, I would say, important, because we are here in the material world, because we have this material body, because we're dealing with the material energy, which is Krishna's energy, we need to learn the secrets, the hidden secrets, the hidden treasures behind Krishna's material energy, and in terms of how we are meant to properly utilize that material energy. That will be the subject matter of our discourse, beginning what, Friday?
Friday 5 to 7.
Yeah, Friday 5 to 7 and Saturday 10
to 12.
Huh?
10 to 12.
10 to 12, yeah. In other words, we have a dual responsibility, dual task, to know about, understand the spiritual dimension of life, which has to do with the Atma and the heart, and also to understand the material dimension of life, which has to do with Krishna's energy and how to properly utilize, how to properly maintain this body, for example, so that the body is healthy, so that we can better serve Krishna, isn't it? So that our mind is healthy and peaceful, so that we can better serve Krishna. We can only better serve Krishna when the mind is peaceful. Therefore, we read that verse yesterday. Evam prasana manaso bhagavat bhakti jo mitaha. When the mind is in the mood of goodness. When we, so the whole Vedic culture is arranged so that in more natural, simple, easy, and more quickly we can rise from the lower modes of nature, because, as Prabhupada explains, although the goal is to rise above and become situated in pure goodness, it doesn't happen overnight. There's a gradual process. And of course, so that means we have to adopt both the spiritual guidelines that are given in the Shastra, and we also need to apply the material guidelines that are given in the Shastra. It's like, eating. If we start eating only sweets that we like, well, Prabhupada mentions how if we go against the laws of nature, then the next 1 or 2 days we have to fast. If we overeat, we have to fast. If we break the laws of nature, of material nature, we get the reaction. So there are material laws of nature and there are spiritual laws of nature. So I like to point this out, this particular verse actually, because it makes that very clear point. Prabhupada makes that clear point regarding how this whole knowledge, this whole system, that personalities like grandfather Vishnudev, who's a Kshatriya, he's instructing another Kshatriya, Yudhishthira Maharaj, about the science of, ultimately the science of governance, how to properly organize society, how to protect society, how to organize society, how to provide for individuals within society, all of which are sciences. Therefore, the devotees are the real scientists. Yeah. And if we simply read and hear, then gradually we can begin to understand. Comments or questions? Hey, there we go. Yes, sir.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you
Yes.
so much, and also
Welcome back.
welcome from us.
Welcome to Zurich. I'm welcoming. I was here before you. Anyway, go ahead.
So I don't remember all the saints who came to the battlefield at the bed of arrows. There were many saints.
Yeah, there were. Yes.
And
yes.
many Brahmins, exalted Brahmins, and
Yes.
still we hear Bhishma Dev instructing Yudhishthira about Varnasrama Dharma, and he's a Kshatriya,
Yes.
which in some way, okay, it's the circumstantially he's leaving his body, so that's also a reason why he could be asked to speak, but then from a more simplistic understanding, we always hear the Brahmanas are the ones who have the knowledge and impart the knowledge.
Yes.
To me it seems like Bhishma Dev seems to be the greatest authority on that subject matter. That's why he also speaks then about Varnasrama Dharma. So can we say that even in that case Kshatriyas can be more knowledgeable, more experienced in the science of Varnasrama Dharma than even Brahmins?
Yes and no. Means they're the ones who are on a day-to-day basis dealing with Varnasrama because they are like hands-on. But we should keep in mind that before becoming, let's say, Kshatriyas, they have also studied the two classes where that need to spend more time in terms of Vedic studies, as we know, are the Brahmanas and the Kshatriyas. So the Kshatriyas, they spend less time. They are less deeply knowledgeable about the science of Varnasrama than the Brahmanas. So then, yeah, one may ask the question, well, if then somebody else should have been teaching Yudhishthira Maharaj. So there were different reasons why grandfather Vishnudev was chosen. One of them, of course, was that even in that very difficult condition of lying on a bed of arrows, to glorify his devotee, Lord Krishna arranged that he be the one to speak not only, of course, on topics of Varnasrama. He goes on speaking for actually many days, and the whole section in the Mahabharata. So both are knowledgeable, but Brahmanas are meant to be more knowledgeable because they're the ones who will at times advise in times of difficulties, or because Dharma is not at all always easy to understand or to follow. Even grandfather Bhishmadev, as we know, was perplexed how to deal with the whole, situation when Draupadi was being dishonored, and later that was pointed out. You are an authority on Dharma. Why you didn't stop this, right? So it means that actually generally the Brahmanas, they are the teachers, but Kshatriyas are also because they have the title Rajarshi, Rajarshi. So they are also knowledgeable. But obviously Krishna is the most knowledgeable, so he was there also. Vyasadeva was there, Narada Muni was there. They're also great authorities. Somehow Krishna, for different reasons, chose Bhishmadev. So these are the two most, they're meant to be, and when Vedic society is in place, they are the two most knowledgeable individuals within society, and therefore they are two most important, we could say, leaders within society. So yeah, sometimes although Brahmanas are teachers, Kshatriyas also can be teaching. Yeah. Yes?
Thank you, Maharaj. I have another question, if you like.
I'm sure you do.
It's many questions.
Yeah.
This is, you have also attended the Varnasrama session at the Islas, I think.
There was a short presentation by Shivaram Maharaj.
Yes.
Yes, you were there?
I was there.
You were there, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And Maharaj, he mentioned that you remember he said that actually the Varna is given karmically. A person has a specific Varna. Then he said, I myself, I have a Vaishya tendency. I was thinking about money.
Right.
And recently, I'm in a discussion with one devotee who he made a presentation pointing or collecting verses from Bhagavatam, I think specifically, which point out that a Brahmin is actually a Brahmin by birth. Can you say something about this? Krishna, of course, says guna karma, but is guna karma given at the time of birth? And in this way we can say if somebody at the time of birth has the nature of a Brahmana or a Kshatriya or Vaishya or Shudra, then that's his destiny for life, and then that just has to be cultivated.
Definitely at birth we acquire so many things from previous lifetimes, but actually even someone who's born in a Brahmana family, unless he receives proper training and education, those qualities will not be properly or sufficiently developed. It means training and education is necessary. When the Vedic culture is in place, and it's very interesting because Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur actually gives important instructions regarding selection of Varna. There's a process, there's a system.
Who is giving that?
Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Prabhupada also in his essay Gita Magari makes reference to the same point, and Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, it is in his Sajat Toshani. He mentions that generally we should assume that when a Vedic culture is in place, that someone who's born in a Brahmana family becomes a Brahmana or is a Brahmana. But it's not automatic, and it's not always the case. He explains that when he gives the process by which, he mentions that before a young boy reaches the age of 15, the elder Brahmanas in the village, they must decide what is, and they must make that known to the individual as well as the residents of the village, what is the Varna of that particular individual. Because the Varna determines the ashram, and the Varna determines the education, isn't it? Yeah. So in that section, he explains how generally we will assume, but he also explains that if we notice, if in particular the Brahmanas of that village notice that if somebody is born, let's say, in a Vaishya family, but is showing signs of being a Brahmana, then he may be elevated or promoted from being born in a Vaishya family and being recognized as a Brahmana. And vice versa also. He mentions that if somebody is born in a Brahmana family but it's not showing signs of a Brahmana, then that designation may be changed also. But after waiting some time, he gives like a 2-year period. Generally, one will take up the Varna of the family within which he is born. But it's like there are examples also, like King Vena. King Vena is a whole explanation, because going back, that's why it mentions that unless one knows, and that's the situation in Kali Yuga, unless one knows and has record of the family lineage going back 7 generations, who have, because it used to be recorded, if they have followed all the sanskaras, or really far away. But for the higher castes, who were meant to follow samskara, even in some places, some old temples in India, they have records. And they know, okay, your grandfather, great-grandfather, great-great-grandfather and whatnot, they followed. So it is explained how, if one cannot establish that his previous, 7 generations are recorded as having followed all other samskaras, then it's like Shudra. That's why it's called Shudra Sambhava. Yeah, welcome to Kali Yuga.
So, just to clarify, you use this word designation or designated, and
Yes.
then
That's
do I understand correctly that even though we hear, I think Prabhupada is using the term, it's not that we can rubber stamp a Brahmin, but still, there, in the Vedic culture you're supposed to find out what's the Varna of a person and then you designate. And
Yes.
so I know, others know, and I can fit into the whole system.
Yes, yes. Although we use the word designate, I use the word, because Prabhupada uses the word actually, when he explains about, one devotee was asking, how do we tackle Varnasrama? Where do we start? Prabhupada answered nicely, he said, just consider everyone as ignorant. Kali Yuga is not a problem, right? Just consider everyone as unqualified. So then you formulate a curriculum for training brahmanas, another different curriculum for training and educating kshatriyas, a different and third curriculum for training vaishyas. Those who take up the different courses and training, then Prabhupada uses the word, you designate them as brahmana, you designate as kshatriya and vaishya. But we know, the philosophy is teaching us, and our acharyas are explaining, it is like a drama. We're just temporarily assuming this role and responsibility while we are in this body for the social proper arrangement of society. That's the whole spirit and purpose of Daiva Varnasrama. Daiva Varnasrama is first and foremost helping us to understand that we are an eternal servant of Krishna. We're aspiring to become pure Vaishnavas. And we're doing this by taking up different roles. One important statement given by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, again, the same source. The Varnasrama system is for the Vaishnavas. The Varnasrama system is for the Vaishnavas who are still in their conditioned state. You know, from the first day we hold the bead bag, we don't become a Paramahamsa. We don't become liberated from the modes of material nature. It takes time. Generally, it takes many lifetimes. By the mercy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it can take one lifetime. Otherwise, it's like, generally takes many, many lifetimes. So therefore, that system, and even in this purport, Prabhupada mentions even somebody who's already self-realized, he will respect and work within the system of Varnasrama, although he may not always follow all the details of Varnasrama. Yes.
You said how Prabhupada, when asked, he said, just consider everyone in ignorance.
Yes.
And then that again sounds a little bit like, okay, I can choose. No, we're all the same, we're all unqualified, and now I can choose. I want to play the part of a Brahmin in this life, or
But that's not the system.
That's not what Prabhupada said.
No. Prabhupada mentioned that we should consider everyone, and it's a fact. We're all unqualified in Kali Yuga, but it's not. The system is that we have to undergo some kind of training and education, and it is determined by higher authorities who we are. I like the facilities of a kshatriya, they're opulent and they live in palaces and whatnot. It's not our choice. And our whole process, of course, is that we take guidance from superior authorities and ultimately from Guru or from those who represent the spiritual master. Right?
It's about astrology, you can see from the chart where you belong.
That is one of the 4 ways that is mentioned by Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Srila Prabhupada also. But it's not the only one.
What's the other 3?
Yeah. Hey, I can find out what my Varna is. For devotees who are living in a temple, it's much less kind of like urgent or much less of a necessity, because we are called upon to do all kinds of activities which may not fit into whatever, but especially for outside when we live in general society. So yes, astrology is one of the four. The other one is looking at and understanding our family lineage, which of course in Kali Yuga, for especially people outside of India or outside of the Vedic culture, we don't know. It's like totally messed up. But I mean, that's one of the criteria. The third one is through observation. By looking and seeing and observing, we can understand the mood, mentality, inclination, likings, whatever. And the fourth one, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentions by administrating psychological tests. So everything is there actually in the Shastra and is explained by our acharyas, and these are the subject matters that are taught, especially that are meant to be taught in Varnasrama college, and that's why it's important. You know, Prabhupada gave that standing order to immediately establish Varnasrama colleges, primarily to train up leaders within our society. And another type of education, because Prabhupada mentioned Varnasrama college is meant to be for the men, because the men in the Vedic culture are the ones who are leaders in society. Now this may be controversial in modern society, but these subject matters, of course, are very often discussed and debated within our society. I would say that one of the easiest and best ways by which more easily we can understand some of the basic principles that are given is the more we are closely living the kind of lifestyle we are meant to live, which is an agrarian lifestyle. Things fall into place more easily, more quickly. You know, that pail of water, which is a big pail of water, is more easy to carry for someone who's a male than, or I mean, you know, hard physical work is usually for men. Not that ladies don't also work physically, they do. Actually, in Vedic culture, they have to grind the grains and, you know, stones and whatnot. And of course, because people, both men and women, are doing a good amount of physical work. I mean, even Brahmanas, you know, it's not only Vaishyas who have cows. Everyone in the Vedic culture, Brahmanas have cows, they have land. And Kshatriyas have cows, have land, when they're not, you know, out there, when there's no war. So that's something we are less understanding, how so many activities connected especially with cows and with land are there for practically all the members of the Vedic society. So that's why until and unless we introduce systematically, as Prabhupada directed, this type of training and education, then we will be failing to understand actually its real deep meaning and significance, and then obviously will not be able to implement or introduce that kind of lifestyle, Vedic lifestyle, agrarian lifestyle, which is of course completely opposite to what we see in modern day society. One more, and maybe last question. Okay, 2 questions.
As I know that one's Varna cannot be changed during one lifetime, but I heard that there are also in the Shastra cases when once Varna was changed, but is it just an exception? And Do you know
If
any
it's-
of those stories, cases mentioned in the Shastra?
Whether varnas change.
Yes, during one lifetime.
Generally not.
Yeah.
Generally not. Although we have examples of individuals from one varna taking up, brahmana taking up kshatriya training and vice versa. But for the vast majority and most of the time, the varna is pretty well fixed. But varna is not the most important thing. Just like we were reading and discussing, I think, yesterday, the day before, how brahmana is meant to be, of course, the word of goodness, but actual brahmana, or a more advanced brahmana, is a Vaishnava brahmana. So regardless of our material position within society, what is meant to unite all of us and meant to make that system more harmonious is that everyone is fixed on bhakti and devotional service. That is the meaning of Daiva Varnasrama. So when that is there, it's like, again, in a temple situation, we may be doing, sometimes we're on the altar, sometimes we're washing the floor, sometimes we're cooking, sometimes we're doing whatever. So it's more important to be on that level or platform that we do the needful. But in general society, there are certain boundaries, so to speak, or certain activities which are generally done by people who are more of that nature and recognized in society also in that particular varna. So right now we don't have that system where brahmanas identify, isn't it, the varna of individuals, and therefore we have varna sankara, and the whole world is confused. Prabhupada mentioned, our acharyas mentioned that until and unless we introduce a very simple and systematic process, which Krishna is giving, Varnasrama, I mean, it seems very maybe difficult, but the system is the most ideal system in terms of organizing society, but it needs to be properly understood, and it can only be understood by people who are in the mode of goodness, and who have some connection with the Vedic knowledge. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Yes.
Yes, Manoj, when you spoke to the classmates of our friend Manu Prabhu, you expressed your appreciation for the Swiss government that they educate farmers in this sense, especially that there is a school for farmers, there is an educational path.
Not exactly Vedic farming, but it's farming.
Yeah. And on the other side, you also said that, or we also observed that the tendency is that more and more children want to go to university, like parents want to do everything that their children go to university and get a higher education because it's better pay after all. And the selection is only given by grades. So you got an A, you go to university. You got a B, maybe it's not such a good university. You got a C, you don't go to university. And so can you comment on that system of, giving like a bird's eye view on these three things that develop, this tendency that our well-established Swiss education system is more and more replaced by parents who have this aggressive desire to send their children to college and university.
We can best understand when we refer to, Rishabhadev, who gives instructions that the primary objective for parents is that they should want to give proper spiritual understanding to their children. So that is absent. So obviously parents in general want their children to be well materially situated, and they have no understanding to a large extent about the primary objective. They have no understanding how majority of children actually are not even meant to go to formal school. So the whole system of modern education is not at all in line with what is meant to be a real education, actual education, where regardless of whether it is material subject matters or spiritual subject matters, the primary goal and objective is to facilitate and help one progress and advance in spiritual life. So in other words, we need to simultaneously not only educate young people, but parents as well. Just like we accept boys in Gurukul, and very often, parents have that same understanding that I want my son to get educated in such a way that later on he'll be able to go to university and whatnot. This is a misunderstanding. Majority of people are not meant to go to university. As a matter of fact, majority of people are not meant to go to formal school or to Gurukul. It's a very, very small percentage. And so it's a change of outlook that is needed, which doesn't or cannot happen overnight, but it is by reading, discussing, and understanding the content of such literatures as Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. That's where it actually begins. As more and more people, more and more devotees more deeply, more clearly understand what is being conveyed by our great Mahajans, our great Vaishnavacharyas, then society will be, So in other words, we have to especially induce or encourage parents of non-devotees and including parents of devotees to be more understanding, more clear as to what society is meant, how society is meant to be arranged, and what education is meant to be also. There's so much of misunderstanding. Yes. It's past 8:30, it's past 9. I think we can close it off. Jai Grantarashna Bhagavatam. Jai Sri Prabhupada. Oh, we have a handbill that we would like to distribute for those who would like. Jai Guru, you have the honors since you printed it. Yes.
His Holiness Bhakti Raghava Swami Maharaj Ki
Jai.
And Bhajan on the altar there. Bhajan.
Sorry?
Bhajan.
Bhajan, Srila Prabhupada Bhajan, yes. Yes, we turn it on. How to turn it on, the Srila Prabhupada's Bhajan, I don't know.
Somebody else do it.
How to turn on the
It's okay.
Prabhupada's Bhajan?
Bhajan.
Yeah, only they can do it.
Where's the button?
It's, they say it's in the Punjari inside, so Pujaris can do
Unless
it.
we have a pujari.
We will ask, Prabhu Pujari, we will do it.
Maybe the button needs to be changed. Yes.
Не
Ну,
про
я вижу, что вы там не пишете, но это не думаешь.
Ну, про Варнашрама, в общем, дело.
А?
Про Варнашрама. Сейф, Амакал, сейф.
Так, да?
Yeah, I'll take both.
Так, да?
Okay. Yes. As if that's okay. That is this extra. Yes. Turkish.
Ну, отлично.
Yes.
Ты с него для меня суть дела.
А?
Ты, получается, что там есть место свободное, да? Чтобы ехать, да, или что, я не понял?
Не знаю, выясняйте.
Нет, а с кем вы выясняете? Я просто пока спрашиваю, что...
Организатор Джайран.
Нет, тут имеется в виду, что ты ездил, теперь ты не едешь, да?
Я записывалась, но я не еду.
Ну ты вчера была?
Вчера была.
Ну, а сегодня не едешь.
Мне нужно ехать, мне соцслужба написала, что
Ну,
мне...
так что получается, что
Надо сдать.
есть шанс у меня спросить у них, да, или как?
Да, но для этого же нужно себе замену найти или сказать, когда вы сделаете SEO. Правильно?
Это такое дело. Главное,
Чье это лежит здесь? Телефоны эти самые.